On fiat stablecoins, when I talk about them, my position is usually that they're going to be the first killer application on the blockchain. To which crypto people turn around and say, no, it's actually the worst blockchain idea ever. And then traditional business or banking people, they first ask me what a stablecoin is because they never heard of it. Then when I explain them what the fiat ones are, they tell me that it's the worst banking idea ever. Today I'm going to make the case that it's neither of those things. So first, a definition. This is my definition, but I think almost everybody would agree with it. A fiat stablecoin is a fully collateralized, transferable, and programmable digital token that could be redeemed for fiat money. And the examples of it that a lot of you are probably familiar with, the oldest and the biggest is still Tether, which I consider the worst implementation of a good idea. Thankfully, as of last year, we now have other alternatives which are much better designed and have much better governance, like TrueUSD, USD Coin, Gemini Dollar, etc. Now, when I talk about these things, the criticism that I get from people in traditional economics or business is usually along the lines of, it's not legal, it's not very useful, it's not scalable. And then crypto people turn around and say, well, these things are centralized, they're censorable, and so on, all of which they are, but that doesn't in any way make them not very useful. Because actually, we've all been using an extremely similar product forever. Does anybody know what this thing here is? Just yell it out. A money order, a post office money order. What is a post office money order? It is a fully collateralized, programmable, and transferable piece of paper that can be redeemed for fiat money. So is a cashier's check. When you get it from a bank, it's collateralized because the bank's holding the cash and locking it down. Transferable because you give it to somebody else. Programmable because you can make it out to somebody else, and so on. And lastly, a prepaid debit card, a fully collateralized, programmable, and transferable piece of plastic that you can use to redeem for fiat money. So, if you think of almost any kind of traditional payment, it consists of a fully collateralized, transferable, and programmable thingy that could be redeemed for fiat. And if you think about it in the context of your own lives, almost all of your dollar interactions are ruled by products like this. When you get paid, you get a check or you get a direct deposit, you don't get a bag of cash. And then when you pay someone, you write them a check, you pay a PayPal, ePay. So really the same idea of what a stablecoin can do is how pretty much all dollar payments work. All of this is basically predicated on the idea that somebody's holding the cash somewhere, and then you make the payment in the form of a proxy. So if you send someone a Venmo, it's not like Venmo has a bag of cash with your name on it as they hand it to somebody else. Really, all Venmo does is make a ledger entry in their internal database. But even Venmo, they have a bank account, but it's not like the bank has a bag of money with Venmo's name on it. So they make a ledger entry in Venmo's name, and then the bank has some vaults, but a lot of their money is just deposits with the central bank. So this idea of using proxies for dollars or euros or whatever that are for payments, they're faster and efficient, more efficient. In fact, paper money itself, for those of you that know the history of it, in some places was born because people used to use gold, and then they kept the gold with the goldsmith, and you gave them a receipt. And at one point they realized that it's more convenient to pay with the receipts than to go get the gold to make the payment. So at the end of the day, the vast majority of dollar payments are not done in physical cash, but with these proxies. And more evidence of that is that, according to McKinsey in 2017, the global payment industry, aka the people behind the programmable, transferable thingies, had $2 trillion in revenues, which means the actual amount of dollars they move around is exponentially higher than that. So, now that we know the idea is not very controversial, the question is, why do it in the first place? So jump in. The first appeal of these stablecoins is that thanks to the blockchain rails that they ride, this is the first truly global payment system. Most of the world's payment systems, especially in the US, are extremely fragmented, and there are all of these silos and walled gardens. It's very hard to move money from one system to another. Stablecoins are fast, they're cheap, we'll get into those two in a little bit. They're accessible. Right now, anybody in the world who has a smartphone is a blockchain mobile wallet download away from being able to transact digital dollars, which is a very revolutionary concept. And they're relatively simple. How simple? On the left, there is an image put together by Bloomberg about how the US payment rails work with the different banks and issuers and receivers, and even the services that we perceive to be convenient, like Apple Pay, they just add to that complexity. They sit on top of it. With stablecoins, on the other hand, the bank gives you a token, you move it around on a blockchain, you can pay someone anywhere in the world. Now, talking about speed, here are traditional payments. Paper checks take 5 days, ACH takes 1 to 2 days. Wires, I think it's remarkable that in the year 2019, there are many jurisdictions where I can overnight them via FedEx a box full of cash faster than I can send them a wire transaction. Fiat stablecoins, on the other hand, particularly the ones that ride on Ethereum or Stellar, they settle within a minute or two, if not seconds, which is somewhat of a limitation for certain payments, because electronic payments do work instantaneously. So that's a problem that the industry is going to have to work around, but I think there are solutions to it. But more importantly, even though services like PayPal and Venmo and so on are fast, they're definitely not cheap. If you pay $1 million on PayPal, the merchant fee that they charge is $29,000. Now you might be thinking, why would anybody pay $1 million on PayPal? One, the reason why people don't is because of the fees, but two, that could be an aggregate number of all payments. If you're a merchant on eBay selling collectibles, it's not unreasonable to think that you have $1 million in revenues in a year, but you have a much lower profit margin, and you have to pay 30 grand of that to PayPal in fees. There are other newer services that are cheaper for certain payments, like TransferWise, but at the end of the day, fiat stablecoins generally only cost a few cents. And what really distinguishes them from these more traditional payments, the blockchain transaction fee is independent of the amount. You can send $10 for a penny, you can send $100 million for a penny. The ledger doesn't care because it's just an entry. So, if you put that all together, and my thesis pans out, that these products are just better payment rails, here's who stands to lose. Visa, in case you didn't know, is the world's second biggest financial company, even though it only has something like 15,000 employees. A bank like Citibank, which is a much bigger company, does a million things, has over 100,000 employees. Visa does one thing, and it does it very well. It charges very high fees for payments. Same thing with PayPal, even these other services. I thought it was interesting, a couple months ago, the CEO of TransferWise made big waves in the crypto industry because he said they found no use case where blockchain makes their service better. People took that to be bearish for the industry. I took that to be very bullish. The reason why TransferWise can't find an application of blockchain that makes their service better is because with fiat stablecoins, we don't need TransferWise anymore. So, who benefits if my prediction comes true that these products become popular? Let's say gas stations. You probably noticed if you drive a car, most gas stations in America charge a different price for cash or credit. The reason why is that their profit margins are so thin that the credit card swipe fees eat away all of it. In fact, the Gas Station Association of America, I don't know their official name, but they will tell you that there have been years in this country where payment processors like Visa and MasterCard made more money from the business of selling gas than gas stations. And the same goes for any industry where they have a lot of high volume but low margins. So retailers, for example, Walmart, Target, Amazon, they have been at war with the payment industry for decades. There have been massive class action lawsuits. There have been botched attempts for them to develop their own payment rails. Starbucks gives you free coffee if you pay with their mobile wallet app. Why? Because they don't want to pay the fees. Amazon now has a cash app where you can go to GameStop, who's their competitor, give them $20 in cash, and they will deposit it in an Amazon mobile wallet that you can use to make payments, all to avoid paying these fees. So I think what's going to happen is in the next year or two, the retail industry is going to get a hold of these products and realize that now that there are independent payment rails, the blockchains, they can finally circumvent these fees. And if your profit margin was 3.5% and the average soy fee in America was 2%, you would be looking at that too. Furthermore, small businesses benefit. The reason why your local deli says minimum $5 for a credit or a debit transaction is because those fees make anything below that not profitable for them. Micropayments, a lot of our business models today are predicated on this idea that micropayments are expensive. Thanks to these products, you could have micropayments that are extremely cheap. And that's going to allow for the evolution of a lot of new business models that people haven't even thought of. You're a winner from all this because all the fees that the legacy system charges are baked in the prices of the goods that we all buy. And lastly, the crypto industry is a winner. Why? Because since the birth of Bitcoin 10 years ago, one of the reasons why the price of crypto coins has appreciated is because of any validation of their underlying infrastructure. So if these stable coins go mainstream, as I believe they will, it's going to be the ultimate validation of decentralized blockchain rails, which is going to be good for the price of the coins. On top of that, there's going to be like 1 billion people that are now one click closer to buying Bitcoin, which is not a bad thing. So, putting it all together, I believe that thanks to these products, we're now on our way to a world where payments are going to be effectively free. Now, when I tell people this, they think I'm crazy, right? $2 trillion in revenues is going to go away. But there is an analogy of when something very similar to this has already happened, which is what happened to charges for speaking on the telephone. For almost a century, charging people per minute to talk on the telephone was an extremely profitable business. There's a famous quote from the former CEO of Quest in the 90s that long distance is still the most profitable business in America, next to importing illegal cocaine. And that chart on the left is what a telephone call from New York to San Francisco used to cost, starting at $25 per minute. It came all the way down to something like 70 cents per minute, as a TV ad in 1977 proclaimed. But today, talking on the telephone is free. Why? Because a voice conversation is just an exchange of data. And in a world where we all already pay for unlimited data on our smartphones, Wi-Fi, it doesn't make sense to pay extra for a niche kind of data, which is why Verizon Wireless, the world's biggest wireless carrier, no longer lets you buy minutes. They have no plans for just minutes. They only have data plans, and for every single one of them, you get unlimited talk. Now, a payment is also just data. In a way, it's a much simpler form of data than a voice conversation, but it's a special kind of data because you need privacy, you need security, and you can't have any errors, right? Like a little bit of static on a Skype call or a WeChat call, no problem. Any kind of error on a payment ruins the whole thing, which is why a company like Visa that has an extremely low error rate on VisaNet gets to charge what they do. But now, after 10 years, that these decentralized blockchain platforms have proven that they too have zero errors, payments are just data. And data wants to be free. So, that's it for the talk. And as a postscript, whenever I talk about all of these things, I like to remind everybody, the title of the original Bitcoin white paper was a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. If you read it now, if you look at the abstract, the intro, or conclusion, there is no mention of inventing a new currency. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin doesn't serve a very useful purpose, which it does, and I believe in it, but when you read the paper, you realize that Satoshi Nakamoto's original mission was to come up for a way to do peer-to-peer cash. And thanks to Fiat Stablecoins, soon the whole world will be doing that. Thank you.